This video is aimed at those of you who would like to grow a fairly large quantity of seeds. If all you want to sow is something like 20 seeds, then I suggest you check my other video, How to Grow the San Pedro from Seeds, which is more aimed at beginners. Today specifically I would like to talk about trays, and how choosing the right tray is crucial for the process of your grow. None of the information in this video has been copied from anyone. These are just personal tips which I found through trial and error. I have no cultivation secrets. I like sharing it all with you, so that you too can grow the San Pedro successfully. When I started growing San Pedro, I used any kind of cheap plastic tray and drilled holes at the bottom. These trays were not meant to be exposed to direct sunlight, and they ended up breaking to pieces after a couple of years. You should only use ordinary plastic trays if you're growing indoors under fluorescent lights, or if you're growing outdoors but for just 1 year or maximum 2. What you really want is trays specifically designed for garden use, as they will be molded in a plastic that is resistant to heavy amounts of UV light. The make I've been using for years is Garland. Their trays are produced in the UK, but you can get them in many countries of the world. They are sturdy and can resist numerous years of hard sunlight. There may be other makes that are good, and if you know of one, please share it with us in the comment section below. I personally use 2 different models of trays from Garland, a deep tray and a shallow tray. Each of them has a specific use. Let me elaborate. If I'm going to sterilize the soil, then I go for a deep tray and I leave it covered by transparent film for many months. If on the other hand I'm not sterilizing the soil, then I go for a shallow tray, and I remove the transparent film shortly after all of the seeds have germinated. Of course, when you remove the film, you should do it progressively over the course of a few days, like I've already shown in my video, How to Grow the San Pedro from Seeds. Let's first talk about the deep tray. The main advantage of the deep tray is that the San Pedro seedlings can grow in an enclosed ecosystem for months without opening it. No need to water, and the plants have got some room to grow in terms of height. I will now explain how that applies to both indoor and outdoor cultivation. If I have to grow San Pedro indoors, then the deep tray is ideal. I don't often grow plants indoors, but if I do, that is usually during the winter months. I sow the seeds on top of some sterilized soil, which has to be moderately wet. Then I seal the tray with transparent film, and I place it under a T5 fluorescent tube with a timer. I also set a heating mat underneath the tray, controlled by the same timer, and like this I can leave it all sealed for the whole of the winter. No need to water since it's a closed environment. The fact that the tray is deep allows for the cacti to increase in height quite a bit without reaching the cling film. And they can grow up to 2 inches in just 6 months. Another advantage of the sealed environment is that you won't have fungus gnats, which are only a danger to very young seedlings, as you may already know if you watched my video on the subject. The same method can be applied for growing outdoors during spring and summer, but you have to keep an eye on the temperatures. The sun rays, even filtered, can easily transform the closed tray into a steaming pot. Sure, the cacti can handle the high temperatures, but higher temperatures and high humidity also make the perfect breeding ground for white mold, which can wipe out all the young seedlings in your tray in just a couple of days. The main disadvantage of a deep tray is that once you open the transparent film, the high walls of the tray don't allow for very good air circulation, which means your plants will be more vulnerable to pests. Not to fungus gnats anymore, but to thrips and red spider mites. As for scale insects, in my experience they prefer all the plants, so they should not be a threat at that stage. If insects become an issue, you can very well aim a small fan in the direction of the tray, set at the lowest speed possible, as you only need to create some mild air movement. Let me show you how I have set up my deep trays outside. They are covered with green shading fabric to filter the sun, and I have placed them in front of my air conditioning unit, which blows hot air right onto them. When I cool down my apartment, the air that is blown outside by the air conditioning unit is going to be hot air, which is perfect for the cacti, and costs me nothing since I would put the air conditioning on anyway. So far it has worked well in keeping the bugs away. In any case, even when the air conditioning is turned off, the air can easily circulate in there. Now let's talk about the other option, which is a shallow tray. I would recommend it if you're planning to grow your plants outdoors without sterilizing the soil. Shallow trays allow for much better air circulation. That is their main advantage. You will still need to cover the tray with transparent film, as the seeds need a humid climate in order to germinate. The film will probably be only about 1 inch or less from the soil surface. Once the seeds have germinated, you can remove the film. Like I said earlier, this has to be done progressively. With the tray uncovered, fungus gnats may be attracted to the wet soil. But that should be no issue, as the airflow around the plants will be excellent, and fungus gnats love stagnant air. In any case, you should let the soil dry between waterings. That will keep the fungus gnats away, as they thrive on a constantly wet soil. Be careful watering plants that are so young, as water can easily unroot them. You should absolutely not use a water can until they are a few months old. You can use a spray bottle, but that will take a lot of time and effort because you shouldn't just wet the top of the soil, but also the entire depth of it. This is why watering from underneath is the best solution. But how do you water from underneath seedlings that are in such a large tray? Very simple. You find another tray that is even larger, like this one, which is also made by Garland. It's crucial to first place your growing tray in the larger one before you add any water. Otherwise, you may find yourself with way too much water in there, with your growing tray first floating on top of the water and then quickly flooding your seedlings. Another advantage of the shallow tray is that the exposure to the wind will give the plants more stability, better roots, and they will be less likely to tip over. To sum it up, the shallow tray is the preferred way for growing San Pedro outdoors, while the deep tray is ideal for growing indoors. If you go for the deep tray indoors and you decide later on to move the tray outside, for instance because the weather is starting to warm up, then you should try to place it somewhere with good air circulation to try to compensate for the high walls of the tray. On the image you can see that the shading cover I used is quite close to the trays, which does not allow for very good airflow. This other setup here is much better, with more space above the trays and with the air conditioning blowing on them. This video so far has been centered on the San Pedro. But what about the peyote? Well, considering the peyote does not grow much in height, I would recommend always using a shallow tray, whether you're growing indoors or outdoors. And yes, if you are starting peyote seeds indoors under fluorescent light, then you should leave it covered with transparent film for a few months, preferably with sterilized soil. The soil level will be close to the transparent film, but since peyotes don't grow much, they will never reach the film. And whether you're growing San Pedro or peyote, remember that after a few months of growth, let's say about 6 months, then you should remove the transparent film, as the plants cannot tolerate a humid climate forever. They will need to start adapting to a drier environment. For those of you interested in getting the same tray as I have, the information and sizes will now appear on the screen. Both the deep and the shallow trays are good for up to about 1,000 seeds each. I am also including details of the larger tray which I use for bottom watering. By the way, these trays were not designed to grow seeds in them. They are meant for people to catch runoffs when watering pots, or to use as catchment trays when potting up plants or mixing soil. But what I personally do is drill holes into them to convert them into the perfect seedling trays. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. And don't forget to tick the notification bell, as it is the only way you can get informed of my future videos. Bye for now.